Loneliness is not neutral. It doesn't just sit quietly in the background of our lives. It actually speaks, I think. And, and over time, it starts to say things like, if I mattered, someone would be here right now with me. Or if I was lovable, I wouldn't feel so forgotten. Or if I was enough, I wouldn't be so alone. See, we don't just feel isolated. We start believing, in essence, that we're disposable. And then when that belief goes unchallenged long enough, it starts sounding a lot like truth. Welcome to Uber Bintegers, where we're building a world where integrity and intimacy are no longer rare. But let's tell the truth a little bit about loneliness, shall we? And especially how it confuses our sense of value. Because many of us weren't just left alone. See, we were left to explain the aloneness. And we did what humans do best, and that is we blamed ourselves. We'd say things like, if I was more interesting, then they would have reached out to me, right? Or if I wasn't so emotional, then they'd have stayed. Or if I was easier to love, then they would have chosen me. Or if I wasn't so complicated, they wouldn't have pulled away. But let's slow this down a little bit, shall we? Because the problem isn't just what we feel in our loneliness. It's more so that the loneliness, it starts altering how we see ourselves as well. See, I think loneliness starts with lying. It tells us that the silence means that we must be unworthy. It tells us that being alone proves that we're not enough. And moreover, that it tells us that our lack of connection is evidence of personal flaws inherent. But those lies, I think, stick so easily because most of us, we were never actually taught the truth in the first place. We were never taught how to hold ourselves in the midst of solitude. We were never shown how to be seen without being surrounded. We were never actually given language for connection that starts from within. And as a result, we chase these external connections as our primary point of proof that we are worthwhile internally. And then we try to collect attention like an armor of sorts. And then we panic when the messages go unanswered. And then we spiral when we're not invited into those settings. We shrink when no one checks in on us. And then we question our entire value in the midst of silence. See, this isn't drama. This is trauma, I would say, like relational trauma. The pain of having been unseen for far too long is part of the indication here. And in this pain, I think we start negotiating within ourselves. And so we'll say things similar to maybe if I'm less emotional, then they'll stay. Or maybe if I'm more fun, I'll get chosen. Or maybe if I ask for less, then I'll feel lovable finally. Maybe if I prove my worth, then someone will hold it. And this is how loneliness becomes confusion. Confusion about who we are, confusion about what we deserve, confusion even about what intimacy really is. But let's say this as clearly as we can in this moment. Loneliness is not a reliable narrator of your life. Loneliness does not tell the truth about your worth. It tells the truth about your disconnection. See, I think that distinction is everything right there, because we're not lonely because we're unworthy. I think we're lonely because we are wired for connection. And many of us were never given models of healthy, mutual, honest intimacy. And that's not a failure, that's a void. And that void is not a verdict. Let me also name this as well. See, the longer that we live in disconnection, the more likely we are to confuse any attention with intimacy. We'll confuse any presence with safety. and will confuse any relationship with love. And that leaves us vulnerable. We're vulnerable to attachment without substance, to validation without integrity, and even vulnerable to connection without any care. And this is why integrity and intimacy are so critical to this conversation. So let me just take a moment here and define them clearly. Integrity is the alignment between our inner truth and our outer expression of that truth. It's living in a way that honors who we are and not who we have to pretend to be. And intimacy is the act of being deeply seen and known, not just physically, but emotionally, soulfully. It's not about proximity as much as it is about presence. And when we confuse loneliness with lack of worth, in essence, we're abandoning both of those traits. We compromise our integrity just to end the silence, and then we end up faking intimacy just to avoid the pain. And so we try to earn connection instead of just receiving it. And then we lose ourselves in the process. But the truth is, we can feel lonely even in a room that is full of people. We can feel worthy even amidst solitude as well. See, worth is not determined by who stayed. Worth is remembered by who we choose to become, especially when no one's watching. So, how do we begin to untangle our worth from loneliness? Well, we start by naming what we've mistaken connection for in the first place. We name the spaces that we've stayed in just to avoid the silence, right? And then we name the messages that we've internalized when no one was checking in on us. We also name the reflex we have to chase or to overgive or to perform just for attention. And then we come home to ourselves with clarity. We ask, does this connection honor my integrity? Or is this intimacy just a way of trying to keep company? Or am I abandoning myself so I don't have to feel alone? Or is the absence of others revealing me or returning me to myself? I think this is where healing can truly begin. Not when the loneliness ends, but when it stops defining us. When we realize that loneliness is just information and not your identity. It's the body's signal, if you will, that we're disconnected from something vital. And that something isn't just other people per se, it's more often than not our own truth. We've been out of touch with what we really feel and what we really need and what we really desire in this life, what kind of intimacy that we really are longing for, and what kind of integrity that we've been sacrificing to just feel enough. So what if, just for today, what if we saw our loneliness as an invitation to reconnect, not by performing for others, and not by grasping for attention, but by sitting with ourselves with honesty, by asking, what part of me have I been avoiding amidst the silence? Or what version of me do I abandon every time I feel lonely? Or what if I didn't see this moment as a failure, but as a sacred pause? Well, what if this pain was the space where my real voice actually gets louder and expressive? Because the truth is, we were never meant to be validated into worthiness. We were meant to remember that we are worthy, so that our connection can flow from that space. Integrity would say something like, I refuse to pretend just to be kept. And then intimacy would just follow up saying, I will be fully known or not at all. See, that kind of foundation does not erase loneliness, but it does redefine it. It gives us something sturdier to stand on. And then it reminds us that we are already whole, even when the room is empty. Further, I think it teaches us that connection is not, like connection is a gift, and it's not proof of our worthiness. It gives us the strength to walk away from expressions of half love, the courage to sit in silence without shame, and the clarity to know the difference between being alone and being abandoned. Because consider this deeper truth here. Loneliness isn't always a sign that something's wrong. See, sometimes loneliness is a sign that perhaps we've just outgrown our need to perform. Sometimes it's just the beginning of becoming honest with ourselves. Sometimes it's what makes space for real connection to finally arrive in your life. And that connection starts with us. See, we deserve relationships where we are seen and not necessarily managed, where we're held and not tolerated, where we're heard without being edited. But those relationships only find us when we first choose to stand in integrity, alone if we must. And that's not a failure. I think that's foundation. Listen, tomorrow, in tomorrow's episode, we're going to explore the complex storylines and narratives that many of us have inherited around worth. The voices that told us that we were not enough, or we were not allowed, or we were not to be who we are. But today, let's maybe just begin listening for the quieter truth beneath the pain of loneliness. See, we're not forgotten. We're not defective. We are not unworthy. We are simply remembering what connection actually feels like. And that connection starts here, with honesty, with integrity, with intimacy, with us. Thanks for listening in. I'll see you in tomorrow's episode.